In 1951, a young black woman walked into Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore, Maryland. She was 31 years old, a mother of 5, and suffering from an aggressive form of cervical cancer. Her name was Henrietta Lacks. She did not know that her life and her body would change medicine forever. Henrietta was born Loretta Pleasant in 1920 in Roanoke, Virginia. After her mother died, giving birth to her 10th child, Henrietta was sent to live with her grandfather in a log cabin. That cabin had once been the slave quarters of her ancestors. She grew up working the tobacco fields, the same land her family once worked in bondage. Henrietta learned resilience early. She was known for her kindness, her smile, and the way she dressed sharply even when money was tight. She married her cousin David Day Lacks, and together they had 5 children. They moved to Turner Station, a black working-class community near Baltimore. It was a place of faith, music, and family, but also a place where opportunities were limited and segregation was law. In January 1951, Henrietta felt something unusual, a lump inside her body. At Johns Hopkins, one of the few hospitals in the region that treated black patients, doctors discovered a malignant tumor on her cervix. They began treatment using radium, the standard therapy at the time. But as part of that process, they also did something she never agreed to. Without telling her, doctors scraped samples of her tumor and gave them to researchers in the hospital's lab. Normally, human cells die quickly once removed from the body, but Henrietta's did not. Her cells multiplied endlessly. They were the first human cells ever to live outside the body, and they could be grown in labs around the world. These cells were labeled with the first 2 letters of her first and last name, HeLa. The discovery was revolutionary. HeLa cells became the building blocks of modern medicine. They were used to develop the polio vaccine in the 1950s, saving millions of lives. They helped scientists test chemotherapy drugs, study radiation, and understand the effects of viruses. HeLa cells made in vitro fertilization possible, guided breakthroughs in gene mapping, and even played a role in the fight against COVID-19. If you've ever received a vaccine, if you've ever had cancer treatment, if you've benefited from medical advances of the last 70 years, Henrietta Lacks has touched your life. But while the world celebrated progress, her family was left in poverty. Henrietta died on October 4th, 1951, just months after her diagnosis. She was buried in an unmarked grave in Clover, Virginia, near her childhood home. Her children grew up without their mother, and without knowing the truth. For decades, they were never told that their mother's cells were alive in laboratories across the world. In the 1970s, researchers began contacting the Lacks family, not to honor Henrietta, but to ask for blood samples and medical records. Still, no one explained why. Her children were confused, suspicious, and deeply hurt. Imagine discovering that your mother's cells had been taken without consent, that companies were making billions from them, and yet you, her child, couldn't even afford health insurance. That was the reality for the Lacks family. Henrietta's story began to surface thanks to journalists, community advocates, and eventually the Lacks family themselves. In 2010, Rebecca Skloot's book, The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, brought her name to the forefront. In 2017, Oprah Winfrey starred in an HBO adaptation, ensuring millions more learned the story. Slowly, justice began to take shape. In 2013, the National Institutes of Health reached an agreement with the Lacks family, giving them some control over how HeLa cells are used in genetic research. And in 2023, more than 70 years after her cells were taken, the family reached a legal settlement with a biotech company that had profited from HeLa. Recognition has come late, but it has come. So what does Henrietta Lacks teach us? First, that black bodies have too often been exploited in the name of progress. From the Tuskegee experiments, to gynecological surgeries on enslaved women, to Henrietta's cells, science has a history that must be acknowledged. Second, that consent is not optional. Every patient deserves respect, dignity, and choice. And third, that legacy is more than wealth. Henrietta's name, once hidden behind the code HeLa, now stands as a symbol of both injustice and triumph. Her cells continue to live in laboratories across the globe. They will likely outlast us all, but her story ensures that she is no longer invisible. Henrietta was a daughter of Virginia, a mother of 5, a woman of strength, style, and faith. She gave science a gift beyond measure. And now, the world finally speaks her name. This is Black Dollar and Culture, sharing real history, real strategy, and real ownership.